Hello and thank you for joining us today for another episode of Silent Voices. Today we will continue an interview that we started in the last segment with Ashely Godfrey. We thank her for all her insight, and she has been a really valuable asset as far as educating everybody on what is taking place in the family court system. And Ashely, thank you so much for all the research you've done to help everybody to understand more what's taking place. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
What would you like to clear up most with the courts?
That I came to the realization of why you did not receive my threatened miscarriage paperwork. It was actually, I don't know if it was my PTSD memory lapses or if it was my stroke disabilities, but I forgot to change my name with the courts from Ashely Durant to Ashely Godfrey. So the day I lost temporary custody, right here, is my threatened miscarriage paperwork. And then I could not attend the day I lost full custody of my daughter because I was a high-risk pregnancy, and I was not going to put my unborn child at risk.
So, what did you not get to refute or to deny to the courts?
Well, due to my lawyer not receiving these therapy notes until a day prior, I never got to refute this. I'm not going to expose it all because I'm not going to exploit my daughter's trauma like that. But I'm just going to refute some of the things she says and underline some of the behaviors that she's dealing with. Heather stated that in her response to my parenting time that Shaden has been in therapy for 2 years. Well, it says that services here started on 4/3/2013. That is a year after mistakenly being taken away from me, and a year after the school counselor I signed her up for said Shaden will need additional counseling. Heather also stated that I continued to amass open CPS cases. I've had one open CPS case, and it was because Shaden had a rock thrown at her at a park, and the school accused me of not bringing her to the hospital because she didn't get stitches, but we brought hospital documentation. They said the mouth heals really quick, so they closed the case and no abuse or neglect on my record. The only thing that's on my record is adverse reactions from medications because I have acquired brain injury and traumatic brain injuries that cause side effects and adverse reactions that's common in acquired brain injury patients. Heather reports that Shaden often acts like, Shaden is very soft-spoken and hesitant to interact with me. She is very timid yet polite child. Heather reports that Shaden often acts like this when she feels uncomfortable or when her behavior is being corrected. Today she struggles to complete activities independently and will often copy what I do in an attempt to seek my approval. Heather reports that Shaden gets in trouble. She often will shut down or lash out. She has difficulty expressing her feelings and has episodes of irritability with no known trigger lasting at days at a time. She has been physically aggressive with her siblings on more than one occasion and is often due to feelings of rejection that they don't want to play with her. She reports that in this letter that that her behavior gets worse after visiting her grandmother or family members connected to Shaden's biological mother. There were no signs of anxiety during the visits. We have plenty of pictures and videos for that. Heather also indicated willingness to work with Shaden's biological mother regarding visitations. She does remain fearful of inconsistent visits and that they will increase Shaden's anxiety and disrupt her attachment with her. The only inconsistencies we had is she would withhold her over little disagreements and change her schedule at the drop of a hat for her work and school schedule. There was no fear at my house except for leaving, clinging to my leg in fear.
So your daughter didn't have a problem being at your house?
I know, and I have multiple witnesses for that.
Okay, so that's something that you really feel they blew out of proportion?
I think she's projecting.
Okay.
Or just fabricating or exaggerating lies to her advantage. Now these other ones are updates from, these are dated 2014. It states in here that they're working on improving family relationships. Well, Heather put a stop to this. My family has had no contact with Shaden since September 2013, and I have a note from my grandma, who was a retired CPS worker, right here, stating that she tried to call Heather on several times and family has not seen her since 2013. If you could zoom into that. And what's consistent throughout here is her behaviors get worse after visits with biological family. Heather reports that when Shaden gets in trouble, she will often shut down and lash out. That's just repetitive. They say Shaden has continued to make inconsistent progress in meeting these goals. She becomes highly disrespectful, avoidant, and distant, and has difficulty academically and behavioral in school. Shaden has had more incidences of sharing her feelings inappropriately with her, which Heather doesn't know what feelings are, so she wouldn't know what appropriate feelings are.
And Heather is a social worker?
No, Heather is the person I placed my daughter with after I was raped to receive help.
Okay. And I just wanted to state at this point, in addition to what Ashely is speaking of, is that, you know, she speaks of her daughter mimicking her, and that's a very natural and healthy thing that all of our children do. That is the way they learn, is by mimicking others. And we've all seen that in our children and grandchildren, and that's not an unhealthy thing. That's just what children go through. It's a part of the natural growing process and learning for kids. And you might have noticed your child watches a movie 100 times in a row and you just want to rip out your hair. Well, this is something that kids do. That's how they learn.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything else that you would like to add as far as that goes?
Shaden Sales is a 9-year-old, very slight in frame. Shaden rarely speaks, and when she does, she speaks in a very quiet, whispery voice. She is shy, sensitive, and difficult to draw out. Her social maturity seems stunted for the 3rd grade. It takes Shaden quite a while to become comfortable and trusting. She has a need to be precise and will look to an adult mentor to gain approval, and what she has said or wrote was, quote, correct. Also, in these therapy notes, let me see if I can find it.
And I just would like for the audience to know, how old is Shaden?
Shaden is 10.
Okay.
She rarely makes eye contact. Heather reports that Shaden acts like this when she feels uncomfortable or when her behavior is being corrected. This is consistent with what's in this abuse report from the hospital. Now, I'm not going to go into this. I'm not going to exploit her trauma. I'm just going to state this statement. Patient seems frightened when talking about Heather mom. She appears sincere in her disclosure of physical abuse. Patient's mother, Ashely, appears generally concerned for her daughter's welfare. I believe a CPS referral is appropriate, and a bruise was noted.
Okay, so what exactly caused the trauma that she went through? Your daughter.
The trauma that she
Yeah,
went
did you
through?
say it was physical abuse?
Yeah, physical and there's more in addition.
And was this in the home of the person who is raising her right now, Heather?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you want to know all of it?
Well, if you could just give everybody a general idea of what took place. You don't have to go into details, but just, you know, the fact that there was physical abuse is definitely a cause for concern.
Yeah, Shaden reported Heather mommy pulls my hair and screams in my face and reports she grabs me by the ribs and shakes me very hard. Before this, me and my husband, reported physical abuse claims on Heather. This is when we were handed the change of custody forms for her shaking her toddler and sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
And physical abuse allegations that Shaden was coming out with against Heather as well. And Shaden didn't tell CPS the same story because she, quote, Heather mommy scares me to not tell the truth and she puts peppers in my mouth. Heather admitted to me and my husband that she put jalapeno peppers in her mouth for lying during this time.
And just wanted to throw in there for those of you who are not aware, it's very common for people who do not want to be found out that they will threaten a child. And the child basically learns through the system that nobody's going to help them. And this child takes that threat very seriously because they have to live with the person. So what they're going through is no longer the same as in their mind as telling the truth or a lie. It's purely survival mode for these kids because they know that this person that they're with is willing to follow through in harming them. And you know, for instance, my son has learned that nobody's going to do anything about it. And, you know, it doesn't matter how many times my ex harms him, they're not going to get the help they need. And they are aware of that.
Yeah, and those therapy notes, by the way, were home-based therapy notes.
Okay.
So Heather was right there.
Yeah, and that makes a huge difference too. And we have counselors who are being paid off too, that the person takes them to the counselor and they're paying the counselor in cash plus they're billing insurance. So they're getting double pay to not tell the truth about the abuse. And unfortunately, that's really unthinkable, but it's happening a lot. Now, I see in my notes here that you have parenting styles. What is the variance of parenting styles that you've noticed?
Aggressive, hostile, or authoritarian parenting styles. In addition, when we had joint custody, Heather frequently belittled me in front of Shaden. Heather frequently threatened me in front of Shaden. She name-called me in front of Shaden. She threatened to take Shaden away from me in front of Shaden, and she threatened to use my PTSD against me. She withheld Shaden from me over disagreements like having an opinion or constructive criticism, over little disagreements like wanting to sign Shaden up for school counseling or have her have an IEP or taking her off school grounds for lunch on her birthday. She flipped out when I signed her up for school counseling. She flipped out when I took Shaden to be evaluated at the hospital without her. It wasn't until I pushed for school counseling that I found out that Heather dropped off old guardianship paperwork to the school. These were sealed court documents. We had joint custody at this time. I was wondering why I was receiving dirty looks from the school, because most parents who have guardianship have their children forcefully removed. I did not. I was homeless. I gave her up.
Okay, and one other thing that I would just, we're running a little bit short on time, and like I said, you've been an amazing source of information to everybody who's listening. But I really want to give you a chance, if Shaden were watching right now, and if you could say anything to her without fear of retaliation, I'd really like to know what you would say to Shaden, either now or when she's bigger.
Nobody left you. Nobody abandoned you. Nobody has rejected you. You are wanted. You are loved. And you are more than your label. And I love you and I miss you so much. And it is not your fault.
We can only hope and pray that one day Shaden will in fact be able to hear them words and know that it was, that you're trying your hardest. And hopefully that moment is sooner rather than later. Is there anything else you would like to say to your precious daughter? Or to the woman who's raising her, to anybody for that matter?
I love you bigger than the sky, deeper than the ocean, more than the moon and the stars at night, infinity and beyond. I love you more.
Well, Ashely, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us and your information. We really appreciate it for you being on our show today.
Thank you.